Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin sitting around 110K, and Steve Bannon says there's a plan for a third Trump term because apparently two's company, three's a coup. A mystery whale who made $200 million shorting Bitcoin in October is back for seconds because nothing says confidence like doubling down on doom. And newly pardoned CZ is debating Peter Schiff on Bitcoin versus gold, which is basically a podcast episode sponsored by Petty and Ego. All that and more right now on today's show. Let's go! Good morning, my prince and princesses of the digital revolution, and welcome back as we close out another week here at the Blockchain Report, where the coffee's hot, the markets are bipolar, and the only thing more volatile than Bitcoin is my sleep schedule. Can you believe I get up at 4 a.m. for this? Crazy. Of course, I am Hank Hudson. I'm coming to you live from the city of overpriced burritos and underperforming tech stocks, San Francisco, California. Thank the good Lord Satoshi, it's Friday, the day we all pretend we're still focused while secretly calculating how early we can sneak out without our boss noticing. Now, before we dive into today's ocean of market chaos and government gaslighting, do the thing, hit the subscribe button like it owes you money, and follow RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and Hank at RoxomTV, because if your financial plan still includes Dogecoin and Hope, well, you need all the help you can get. All right, the charts are confused, the analysts are emotional, and somewhere out there, Gary Gensler just woke up in a cold sweat. So let's kick off today's show with our market rundown and see how things are looking as we head into this much needed weekend. Let's check it out. All right, so this morning, not a whole lot of movement from Bitcoin. We know that CPI data came in this morning, a little cooler than we thought. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. And Bitcoin's price action hasn't done too much. We're sitting right around that 110K mark today, and we're going to be chatting in just a bit with our resident chart shark, Luca Pagano, as he helps us read the tea leaves and let us know what are the price levels we'll need to be looking for as we enter into the weekend, hopefully seeing some upward momentum so we can finally make that next leg up. It's called October after all, right? I'm still waiting for it. All right, in the meantime, though, it's time for some Bitcoin Alpha. This is where we break down the on-chain data that, actually matters without trying to put you to sleep or making you learn math. We'll take care of that part. So let's dive into the data because the numbers don't lie. They just sometimes need a translator. And that's what I'm here for. So let's bring them up. So the first chart we're going into this morning, this is the long-term holder binary spending indicator. This chart shows when long-term Bitcoin holders, the people that never sell, actually start selling. The orange and red bars you can see there are those moments of moderate and heavy spending. So historically, the big red spikes you see there show up right before the market tops, and that's when OGs start cashing out. But right now, we're seeing some light orange, meaning that yes, long-term holders are distributing, but nowhere near any kind of panic mode. Now, each cycle, the amount of Bitcoin they keep grows. Those yellow lines show higher lows each time. Or in other words, the diamond hands are still holding most of the supply out there. Now, what does it mean? Well, long-term holders are selling just enough to feed the bull market, not dump it. That's classic mid-bull run behavior. Now, until we see a full-on wave of heavy red bars, this does not look like a cycle top. So OG Bitcoin holders are taking some profits, but they're not running for the exits. That, my friends, is healthy, not scary. All right, so the next chart we're bringing up here, this one is called the everything indicator because it blends a bunch of on-chain and macro metrics. We're talking the MBRV, the SPOR, money supply, all the nerd stuff into one signal. Now, when that orange line you can see right here spikes way up into the red zone, Bitcoin's usually overheated and due for a bit of a correction. But when it's down in the green zone, that is accumulation season. You can see those little dots right there. Right now, you can see the orange line is forming a staircase of higher lows. There's our little staircase, right? Now, meaning every dip has been shallower and sentiment keeps improving. Now, we're not in the red zone yet. We're still comfortably below the historical topping area. Now, what that means is that the market's cooling off a bit, but nowhere near euphoric. That suggests that there's still room to run before we hit full-on mania. So the everything indicator is telling us Things are not overheated. We're just stretching our legs before the next big sprint. All right, and our final chart we're breaking down here, this is the on-chain ordinals price models, okay? Or in plain English, this one overlays several valuation bands, things like realized price, delta price, and vaulted price, basically all the models that estimate Bitcoin's fair value. Now, the green dashed lines up top show where Bitcoin tends to peak. The blue and red lines below show strong support zones. Right now, Bitcoin's sitting between the true mean price, that's around 81K, and the vaulted price up near 150K. Now, the last two times we hit similar levels, price chopped sideways before blasting through that top band there. What it means is that as long as we stay above 81K and don't break the lower bands, this looks like consolidation before another leg up. So think of it as like the calm before the next mountain climb, not the end of the trail. All right, so price right now is stuck between 81 and 150. That's consolidation, not capitulation. So what does all of this mean today, gang? Well, Bitcoin's trading around that 110K mark, and the key short-term level to watch is the 114K mark. That's the short-term holder cost basis. Breaking and holding that would flip the market tone bullish once again. Long-term holders are selling right now, but it's not bearish. It's just the natural recycling of the supply that happens every bull run. All the major on-chain metrics, we're talking long-term holder, behavior, everything indicator, and valuation models point to healthy consolidation before expansion, not exhaustion. So bottom line here, gang, is the lights are still on at the Bitcoin party. We might just be taking a breather, but nobody's gone home just yet. All right, we got a lot to talk about on today's show, but we're going to take a quick break first. But when we're back, we're starting things off this morning with our bull run and today's top stories. So stay tuned. The Blockchain Report will be back with you right after this quick message. All right, welcome back. It is time for this morning's bull run as we go over the top stories of the day so that you can get a couple more minutes of shut-eye every morning, you sweet, sweet fella and gal you. Let's get into it. All right, so you know what's scarier than inflation? Well, not knowing how bad it is because the government shut down. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics finally released the September Consumer Price Index, you know, the one that was delayed 3 weeks because Washington decided that math was non-essential. And the good news is it's only slightly terrible. Prices rose 0.3% on the month and 3% year over year, lower than what economists expected, which apparently qualifies as victory now. Core CPI, which excludes food and energy, aka the things you actually buy, rose just 0.2% in September, also below forecasts. So technically, inflation's cooling, but everything you care about is still getting more and more expensive. Gas jumped 4.1% in September, the biggest mover in the report. Food rose another 0.2%, and in the last year, prices for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs surged over 5%. Because nothing says economic recovery like paying ribeye prices for eggs again. Shelter costs, which make up a third of CPI, rose just 0.2% for the month and 3.6% annually. That's government speak for your rent didn't drop, but we adjusted the spreadsheet. Officials at the Bureau of Labor Statistics say they only released this data because the Social Security Administration needs it to calculate cost of living increases for retirees. Otherwise, the government's still too busy arguing about whose fault the shutdown is to publish actual numbers. But here's the kicker. This CPI report is the only piece of official economic data allowed to exist right now. Traders now expect a quarter-point cut next week and maybe another one come December because apparently fiscal discipline has been rebranded as YOLO. And Steve Bannon, yes, that Steve Bannon, the human embodiment of an unwashed manifesto, says Trump will have a third presidential term. Not might, not could, but will. Let's take a look at the clip and see for ourselves, shall we?
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on...
So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started.
Thanks, Steve. This is exactly what we wanted to hear from a guy who once tried to overthrow a Democratic election. Bannon also called Trump an instrument of divine will, which is wild because last time I checked, divine will didn't need campaign donations. Apparently, America's just a franchise now, and this is Fast and the Furious 11, constitutional drift. Can't wait for this one. Now, this isn't just Bannon rambling either. Trump himself has been teasing the idea. He posted a Truth Social video showing him ruling not just through 2032, but forever. Because if you're going to test democracy, you might as well go full Marvel multiverse. In a past NBC interview, Trump said a lot of people want him to run for a third term and that there are methods to do it, including one where J.D. Vance runs, wins, and then just hands the presidency back to Trump. So we're not even hiding the how do we hack democracy arc anymore, are we? And here's the real kicker. Constitutional scholars actually say it's technically possible. Yikes! A former Harvard professor explained that the 22nd Amendment bans being elected 3 times, but not serving 3 terms. So yeah, Steve Bannon says there's a plan, Trump says a lot of people want it, and the Constitution says, good luck guys, I'm tired. And in other news, Trump has officially terminated all trade negotiations with Canada because of an ad.
You are fake
not
news.
A war. It's true. Get out of here, Donald. Now, this isn't about a war. This isn't about a policy dispute, not even a maple syrup tariff. This is all because of an ad. Now, specifically, an Ontario government commercial that used a clip of Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs. Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario and self-proclaimed big Reagan fan, spent $75 million running this ad in the U.S. Let's take a look.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but this seems like pretty mild stuff, right? I mean, unless, of course, you've built your entire second term on tariffs like Trump has. Trump then went on his Truth Social that the ad was fake and accused Canada of trying to interfere with a pending Supreme Court case that could overturn many of his tariffs, including those on Canada. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation later confirmed that the ad did use his 1987 radio address without permission, but didn't say it was inaccurate, just edited. They even posted the full unedited speech to YouTube, which is the modern equivalent of saying receipts attached. So now one of America's closest trade relationships has been frozen because of a 38-year-old Republican president voicing basic economics from beyond the grave. If you're keeping score at home, Trump now has killed trade talks with Canada twice this year. The first time was back in June after Canada announced a digital services tax on U.S. tech firms. They rescinded it 2 days later, so odds are they'll just apologize again, send him some hockey tickets or something, and move on. Meanwhile, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is panicking. Supply chains are sweating, and Ontario just got $75 million in free publicity. Honestly, though, Reagan's ghost is probably looking down thinking, man, I didn't even need AI to cause this much chaos. And major Asian exchanges are slamming the door on companies trying to copy Michael Saylor's Bitcoin treasury model because apparently holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet now counts as an extreme sport. In Hong Kong, regulators have rejected 5 companies seeking to pivot into Bitcoin treasuries in recent months. In India, the Bombay Stock Exchange recently denied Jet King's InfoTrains listing after the company revealed plans to put 60% of its raised funds into Bitcoin. Experts say it's all about volatility risk. One Hong Kong Web3 Association official says regulators worry these firms could turn into volatility arbitrage shells disguised as leveraged Bitcoin plays. Which sounds like something Michael Saylor would print on a t-shirt, honestly. The official went on to say that Asia's regulatory landscape is fragmented. Singapore focuses on payments, Hong Kong on investor protection, and India on making sure nobody has any fun. He said that without clear frameworks, founders are moving offshore, calling the rejections a missed opportunity for innovation. And there's real money at stake here too. According to 10x Research, retail investors lost about $17 billion globally on digital asset treasury trades, which regulators definitely noticed. But globally, the Bitcoin treasury movement is still thriving. Over 172 public companies now hold Bitcoin. That's up nearly 40% in just 3 months, collectively worth over $117 billion. Let's take a look at some of those companies holding the most BTC on my favorite website in the world. We talk about it all the time, bitcointreasuries.net. Let's take a peek here and see what's going on. All right, so if you're not aware, this is the #1 place on all of the interwebs to follow what your favorite public Bitcoin treasury companies are doing with their stacks and how those stacks are affecting their business metrics. So what you can see right now, this is the big leaderboard. And at the top of that leaderboard, surprise, surprise, is Strategy. And they've got like over 640,000 Bitcoin right now. And what's great about this website is we can click on Strategy right here or any of the people on this leaderboard and get the full picture of their Bitcoin stack and what it's doing for their business. So if we can, guys, I would love to take a little click here on Strategy. Beautifully, here it's coming up. And then we can scroll down and we're going to see some more of the fundamentals about Strategy. So right now, 640,418 Bitcoin. Not bad. Their average cost basis just crept over 74,000. So right now they are firmly in the green at over 49% unrealized profit. And Michael, our Lord and Sailor, is feeling good about it. If we scroll down a little further, we can even see how this affects their stock and their financial numbers. So right now their total market cap is 83 billion, but market cap diluted 92 billion. Okay, their enterprise value is 97 billion. So this gives you a lot of really useful information on what this company is doing with their Bitcoin holdings and how it's affecting their overall portfolio. So bitcointreasuries.net, if you haven't already bookmarked it, I think now is a signal to do so. Check it out. All right, let's go back to camera 1 here, gang. All right, in other news, billions in Bitcoin are on the move. And not from whales taking profits for once. Nearly $2 billion worth of BTC linked to Chen Zi, the alleged mastermind of a $14 billion global crypto scam, has shifted across the blockchain. Now, Chen's the founder of the Prince Holding Group, a Cambodian conglomerate accused of running massive pig butchering fraud schemes, luring victims into fake crypto investments until their wallets are totally drained. Last week, the U.S. Department of Justice charged Chen with wire fraud and money laundering, calling it one of the largest cases in history. The Treasury even blacklisted multiple wallets tied to his operation. But according to Arkham Intelligence, Chen's crew still managed to move almost 16,000 in BTC, that's around $1.7 billion worth, into 4 new wallets. That's separate from the $14 billion already seized by the U.S. government, which they say is the largest crypto forfeiture ever. Now here's where it gets even more wild. Some of that Bitcoin might not have been stolen at all. Arkham says the funds the DOJ seized were originally tied to a Chinese mining pool called Lubion, which was reportedly hacked back in 2020. But the DOJ also claims Lubion was part of Chen's laundering network. So depending on who you ask, the Bitcoin either belonged to the victims or to Chen or to Lubion, or possibly the United States government. Analysts are still arguing over whether a theft even happened at all, or if the government somehow ended up holding the coins by other means. What's clear here is that billions in Bitcoin are flying around like it's 2013 all over again. It's messy, it's mysterious, and a perfect reminder that Bitcoin doesn't lie, but oh golly, people sure do. And a crypto whale who made nearly $200 million shorting Bitcoin during the October crash 2 weeks ago is apparently not satisfied with being right once, because after pocketing a fortune, this guy decided the sequel needed higher stakes and even more leverage. Be in Crypto reports that this Bitcoin OG timed the October meltdown perfectly, taking short positions across Bitcoin and Ethereum that earned him $197 million in about 30 hours. It's a great hourly rate. Now, after closing those trades, he could have retired, bought an island, maybe even, I don't know, a small country. But instead, he wired $30 million in USDC back to Hyperliquid and opened a 10x leverage short on 700 Bitcoin worth about $75.5 million. And then he kept on going. According to Hyperdash, that same whale's position has now ballooned to over $226 million. He's even sitting at an unrealized profit of $6.8 million because apparently once you've stared into the abyss, you start rooting for it. This guy didn't stop there either. Since the October 11th crash, he's also deposited over 5,200 Bitcoin worth nearly $588 million into Binance, Coinbase, and Hyperliquid. Or in other words, he's offloading Bitcoin while betting against it. The man's playing chess while everyone else is still trying to spell it. Must be nice. But there's more to this thing than meets the eye, because this same trader who allegedly called Trump's tariff crash perfectly decided to gamble on something even crazier. And that would be Trump's forgiveness. Yeah, according to the on-chain sleuths, he bet 56 grand that Trump would pardon Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, a move that Trump just took public yesterday. Now, if insider trading had a soundtrack, it would be playing right now. Naturally, the internet detectives went wild with this information. On-chain investigator CoffeeZilla told his thousands of followers the setup looks like obvious insider knowledge. One commentator pointed out that using insider info to make 56 grand isn't exactly Bond villain money. And if he's right, and if you have a president of the United States on speed dial, why risk it for what ultimately is a used Tesla? Still, the whole thing reeks of insider whales, political favors, and don't ask too many questions. So that's just great. And it looks like, in other news, the people have spoken. And apparently some of them think Sam Bankman-Fried deserves a get-out-of-jail-free card. Now, polymarket bettors have pushed the odds of SBF getting a pardon this year all the way up to 12%. That's more than $6.5 million that has been dumped into that market, including a cool $302,000 bet on the man who made effective altruism sound like a Ponzi scheme with PR. There's even a second market tracking whether SBF will be released from custody this year. SBF is still appealing his 25-year sentence, but no one expects any miracle from the courts this year. That means a pardon from Trump is pretty much his only way out before January. And why did this pardon talk suddenly explode? Well, because Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, who we just talked about, got his own pardon this week. So naturally, the internet said, well, if CZ got one, why not SBF? One lawyer says the two cases aren't even in the same ballpark. She said that CZ never stole user funds or defrauded customers. His crime was compliance related, not criminal in the moral sense. Binance actually worked. Withdrawals worked. Customers didn't wake up to discover their savings had been turned into a luxury bohemian sex condo. Trump, for his part, said he was told that what CZ did was not even a crime and that he was persecuted by the Biden administration. So yeah, president pardoned a billionaire for a non-crime to own his political rivals. Very, very on brand. Meanwhile, CZ is a key backer of Trump's World Liberty Financial crypto platform. But sure, there's no connection there at all. Just coincidence. And meanwhile, Changpeng Zhao is out on jail, out of patience, and apparently he's also out for blood. Just hours after being pardoned by President Trump, the newly liberated Binance founder has accepted a challenge from gold evangelist Peter Schiff to settle the oldest argument in finance: Bitcoin or gold? Now, Schiff, who's been screaming buy gold atop his soapbox since before the iPhone existed, recently announced he's launching his own tokenized gold platform, complete with a blockchain token called T-Gold that he claims will let users buy, store, and redeem physical gold on-chain. He calls it real money for the digital age. CZ calls it a trust me bro token. The two started chirping at each other on X, with Schiff offering to debate and CZ firing back that tokenized gold isn't truly on-chain because you still have to trust a vault full of guys who go home at 5 p.m. Now, this all comes during a monster gold rally. Prices hit $4,380 per ounce earlier this month. Now, there's no date for the debate just yet, but when it happens, expect fireworks, charts, and more hard money smack talk than a Peter Schiff podcast. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we got more news coming up on the Blockchain Report, and we're going to be joined by a special guest in just a little bit to break down what's going on in Hollyweird and Silicon Valley. So stay tuned. All that coming up on the Blockchain Report when we return. All right, welcome back. It's time to see what's going on the RoxomTV X page. If you haven't already, definitely give it a follow. It is 24/7 coverage on all the most important financial info, especially as it pertains to the Bitcoin universe. So you don't get better than that. So RoxomTV.com if you haven't. RoxomTV on Twitter/X if you haven't seen it already. Let's see what's going on this morning. Just 20 minutes ago, let's see. 2017, JP Morgan says Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a fraud that will eventually blow up. We remember hearing about that. And then this year, and then today a report came out that in 2026, JP Morgan will be offering crypto services to its clients. And in fact, you will be able to use your Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral for loans. So how far we have come, Jamie, since that 2017 comment. So, I mean, come on, guys. This really is just further proof of how fast and how far these tides are changing right now in the Bitcoin ecosystem. What used to be avoided like a pariah is now being reluctantly to some, yet embraced by the world each and every day. We're seeing news like this come up. So if you still think Bitcoin is going anywhere but up and to the right, well, I've got some magic beans to sell you too, because I think we know where it's going. Up and to the right, baby. All right, let's scroll down a little further. Let's see what else we got here. Trump had a fun tweet on Truth Social this morning, because that's what he does. He said in all caps, obviously, the United States is wealthy, powerful, and nationally secure, again, all because of tariffs. The most important case ever is in the United States Supreme Court. God bless America. Well, Donald, I have a little ad run by Ontario that features former President Ronald Reagan that might beg to differ with their thought processes there. But hey, we'll see how this.
You are fake news.
This whole government. Hey, get out of here, Donald. This whole government shutdown and tariff thing has been really fun so far. So thank you for that. All right, we scroll down further on the Roxom page. We can see just an hour ago, they posted a really interesting chart with Bitcoin versus gold, and it's 188-day lag. People always say that gold's moves tend to front run Bitcoin by about 6 months or so, and this would certainly line up with that. And you can see on the chart right here, we have that, yeah, you guys have it brought up bigger. So we can see right now, Bitcoin is that white line there, and we can see where gold is gone, and that means I think we're expecting Bitcoin to do something similar here in Q4. I mean, that has been the talk for the last couple of months. October, Q4 is usually the biggest month for Bitcoin. So even though we're at 110 right now, we had our high of 126 just about 2 weeks back before the flash crash. It certainly appears that things are right on schedule despite a lot of the FUD you're going to see out there. But hey, we've been seeing that FUD for close to 16 years now, so no real big surprises on that front. All right, let's scroll down a little further here. Oh, this is fun. So I don't know if you all remember, but back in August, the city of Lugano, Switzerland, had this Satoshi statue that was then was public, it was cool, it was beautiful, and then someone decided to vandalize it, and they found pieces of the broken statue in the lake nearby. But it looks like they have built a new one, and they have a whole bunch of people coming out to celebrate it being put up in place of the old broken one. And Victor, I think I remember you saying we have some pictures or something of the old statue that got all messed up and broken. There it is. Oh, holy mother of Satoshi, what monsters. Who would do that to the man who's trying to free us from the financial burdens of yesteryear? My goodness, you guys are animals out there. But hey, we're glad the new statue is up, and hopefully they won't vandalize this one. Let's get a guard up on there like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, right? We can't have anyone else doing that. And I think that's a wrap for the Twitter page right now from what I'm seeing here, gang. So right now, actually we have one more I want to bring up. Let's scroll a little further down. We have, this was interesting. So we mentioned Changpeng Zhao was pardoned by President Donald Trump recently after, the whole Binance thing. Well, it looks like, in an interesting wrinkle to this news, reports are suggesting that CZ's Binance accepted $2 billion in Trump-linked stablecoin USD1 just weeks before the pardon was announced, which was led by the same lawyer representing Trump's World Liberty Financial. This doesn't sound fishy at all. I'm happy of what this means for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem, but stuff like this really, no matter what the arena is, the government's going to do some shady stuff, and this certainly seems to be further evidence of that. So that's why we can't trust the Fed, guys. That's why Bitcoin solves this. Come on, you guys knew that already, though. All right, so that's it for Bitcoin on our Twitter post on RoxomTV right now. We're going to take a quick break, but when we're back, we've got Tales from Hollywood coming up, but we're going to talk about this story as to how Hollywood and Silicon Valley have lost their ways, and we're going to be bringing in the author of that story to talk more about it right here on the show. So stay tuned, more Blockchain Report coming your way right after this quick break. All right, welcome back. It's time for some Tales from Hollywood. So let's see what those Holly weirdos are up to now, shall we? Because Hollywood says that it owes the world an apology. And for once, it's not about The Flash, Morbius, or the 47th reboot of Snow White. This time, it's for something even worse, letting Silicon Valley burn the planet while it was too busy remaking The Lion King in 8K. According to guest columnist for The Hollywood Reporter John Lopez, Tinseltown could have offered tech bros another path. Instead, they gave them The Social Network, which was supposed to be a cautionary tale, but to Mark Zuckerberg, it was a how-to manual. The author says everything's on fire, literally and metaphorically. Great. We've got stagflation, ice raids, AI sludge clogging the internet, and data centers boiling rivers faster than you can say sustainable computing. And through it all, Hollywood apparently could have stopped it, but they didn't. They admit they were too busy rebooting 1950s comic books to notice the hoodie-clad billionaires building Robo-God in the desert. The piece argues that the rich used to waste money the right way by funding cocaine-fueled prestige movies and yacht parties at Cannes. Now they waste it the wrong way by constructing GPU pyramids so super intelligent AI can spread through the light cone of the universe like cancer. Now, once upon a time, Hollywood gave us art. They gave us glamour and at least one of the Hemsworths per summer. New Silicon Valley, though, gives us Peter Thiel doing TED Talks about the Antichrist. Now, the writer Lopez calls Hollywood the casino of prestige and glamour, a safe place for rich people to burn money and occasionally create something beautiful. It worked for centuries, from the medicus to the robber barons. You dump your fortune into art, you get your name on a museum, and everyone pretends that you have taste. But Silicon Valley skipped the taste part entirely. They just started getting high on their own AI supply. Instead of funding the next Godfather, they funded the actual Godfather, as in, let's make an AI deity because death is cringe. So now we live in a world where socially awkward billionaires have replaced directors, and every new startup sounds like a rejected Black Mirror episode. The article says Hollywood could have lured them in, buttered up the nerds, taught them the fine art of cultural relevance, maybe even turned their coding obsession into cinema instead of surveillance capitalism. Instead, they let the algorithms take over. Apple and Amazon invested in content, sure, with all the passion of a data analyst correcting a rounding error. They took Hollywood's magic and turned it into content so safe it could legally be prescribed as a sleep aid. What used to be art became a spreadsheet. And once that happened, the artists stopped leading and the engineers started thinking they could write. The results here, a monoculture of exploitative social media, data-hungry apps, and AI models trained to plagiarize your creativity faster than your therapist can say burnout. And the worst part of all this, they actually think they're making culture. Now, without Hollywood to show them how to waste money creatively, Silicon Valley decided to waste it destructively. They replaced the cocaine with compute, the red carpet with server racks, the artistic gamble with the illusion of control. So here we are, a society where billionaires are terrified of mortality, coding their way to immortality, while the rest of us drown in algorithmic garbage. Now, Lopez says it didn't have to be this way. If there's one thing Hollywood knows how to do, it's indulge in mind-blowing folly, but keep it imaginary. Silicon Valley just forgot that last part, and now they're playing God in real life and doing it with worse dialogue than The Room. Love that movie. So yes, Hollywood says it's scary. Sorry it didn't teach the tech bros how to lose money in style. And sorry it didn't turn the robot apocalypse into a movie before it became a documentary. And sorry that instead of another Citizen Kang, we got Zuck of the dead. All right, so joining us to talk about this really interesting thing that we're seeing in Hollywood and Silicon Valley right now is the author of this piece, John Lopez. John, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. That's quite a summary of the piece. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you bringing the truth to the light. And I want to talk more about that in a second. But before we do, John, and dive into your essay, I would love to for you to give us a little background. Like, how did you end up writing about the collision of Hollywood tech and culture? And what's your background in journalism, filmmaking, something in between?
Yeah, of course. No, I've been a writer for a long time. I came out here as an assistant 20 years ago, and I did the Hollywood ladder. You know, I became a TV writer, a filmmaker, a film writer. Along the way, I've written for, a bunch of different places like Vanity Fair, LA Times, and now Hollywood Reporter. And I was talking to an old editor friend, and we were laughing, like, what happened to Hollywood? Like, where is the fun? And I said, it's pretty simple. There's no money here anymore. And my buddy goes, yeah, but there's so much money in Silicon Valley, and they've got so much excess money. What's going on? And then I went on this rant. And I'm like, you know what? That used to be the way Hollywood financing worked. As an assistant, I would work for producers, I'd work for studios, I'd work for business affairs. And like the secret was always, all right, where's the next pile of cash going to come from that we can blow? And it was pretty obvious it was Silicon Valley. Once Google set up its ad monopoly and the money started coming in, it was kind of like, all right, that's your next source of funding. Because the truth is, almost every movie loses money. You don't do it to make money. If you want to make money in Hollywood, you buy a studio, you invest in like 50 movies, and like one movie pays for 49. It's a kind of similar dynamic to Silicon Valley. And I'm like, why didn't we get this money? Why didn't we teach them how to like blow money in fun ways? The kind of movies that we make now and the kind of TV that we make now, it kind of it's shrunk a lot. In the piece, I referenced Master and Commander, which is an insane movie. They built a giant boat. They had naval war battles off the coast of Mexico, standing in for the Galapagos. Hollywood can't do that anymore. And everyone's talking about, oh, AI is going to shrink costs. But at the same time, like, the screen is getting smaller. The spectacle is getting more boring. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I go on streaming and I can't remember the thing I watched last night or 90 minutes ago. And I'm like, where is the cool stuff? Where is the cool shit? And I'd say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have gone up to Silicon Valley and asked them for some money and kind of convinced them to party with us.
Yeah, no, they definitely don't seem to have fun like they used to, and the movies that we're seeing are certainly reflecting that. And, it's like they do these things for monetary reasons, but the stuff they're putting out there is absolute dog shit, and it's not doing well. Like, look at the most recent Tron movie with Jared Leto. Nobody asked for him in that, and that thing tanked in the office. And then the movie that's some people are saying is one of the best ones of the year is that new Leo movie. Also has been tanking in the box office. So it's like they have no idea, I think, what the consumer wants, or they think they know what they want, but they're not doing a very good job of it, seemingly. And the real creative things that we used to see even 20 years ago, like I think of Garden State, which was that small budget thing with Zach Braff that ended up exploding. There's no heart or humanity in movies anymore.
Oh my God, we are ruled by the algorithm, man. It is depressing. Like, you go and you pitch things to Netflix and Amazon and you get these really weird notes. I remember one I heard was, make sure you include a map at minute 15 because maps boost engagement. And I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah, like why am I writing something to put a map in at minute 15? Is what you mean? It was a movie about finding treasure, maybe? Like Indiana Jones hunting down the Lost Ark or the Holy Grail? Is that why at minute 15 a map meant something? But that's kind of like the mindset that Silicon Valley colonized Hollywood with. And the truth is, for most of the 20th century, we've been doing it the other way. We're the crazy, weird, cool kids. Like, everything in Hollywood is a crazy gamble. No one really knows what works. All this algorithmic stuff is kind of like a hack that isn't really real. And the whole point is you get cool things. You get There Will Be Blood. You get Gladiator. You get The Godfather. I mean, The Godfather was Francis Ford Coppola going to Robert Evans. I mean, you can watch a whole series about it on Paramount and saying, hey, let's do a gangster movie that's actually about real gangsters. And everyone at the time was like, whoa, what do you mean? Actually about Italian gangsters? I don't know. Is the general public going to like that? Of course they loved it. And that is our job. We are the burnout loser theater kids who pissed away our high school and college, read a lot of books, did a lot of crazy things, maybe did some drugs, some of us, not all of us, but a lot of us. And learn how to have fun. We struggle with like, what does this all mean? Where are we going? Why are we doing anything? Let's do something cool. And I look up at Silicon Valley's ethos, and it's so bland, and all the apps look the same, and all the design looks the same, and it's just like this reshuffling. So to me, I'm not surprised that like AI became the next obsession, because all it does is reshuffle everything that has come before. You look at any AI output, whether it's like video or text, and generally you can be like, yeah, I know I've seen that somewhere. And if you dig hard enough in the internet, you'll dredge it up, and you're like, I don't know, it was cool the first time, but what's the next thing? Like, what are we doing that's interesting? Why do we care? And I felt like, a lot of Hollywood, we complain about Silicon Valley, and, it is true. I think they've done a lot of damage to the planet, and I think they've got all kind of getting high on their own supply. But I look back and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you let them in the party, you let them into play, and maybe they don't build something that could wipe out all of existence. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really a shame because we're seeing Silicon Valley do what it does, right? Which is like trying to find formulas for things, but that's not necessarily how great creative works begin. They begin with Hunter S. Thompson tripping on LSD, or these other types of experiences. It's not, this is what worked in the past, now we can build this formula and
Exactly.
replicate that type of success. It's just not that simple with art, right? That's why a lot of art, some of the greatest art in the world, didn't get discovered until way after the death of a certain artist. Like, that's just not
Exactly.
how that creative process works.
No, Moby Dick was a failure when it first came out, and now every high school kid has to pretend to have read it or ask ChatGPT to read it and give an error-ridden summary about whale fat or something like that. No, it's like you need
Exactly.
like there is, and by the way, I bet you mathematically, I also like math and tech, and I think part of the reason is that in Hollywood, like, we're scared of numbers, we're scared of science, and we're scared of all that. Some of us aren't. Chris Nolan gave us Oppenheimer, which is freaking awesome. Sorry, I'm trying not to drop too many F-bombs, but it was a great film, and he had fun, and he loved science and art. But a lot of us here are a little bit scared of it, and I feel like there's also this kind of, I don't know. I spent a lot of time split between the two because I've kind of worked on AI and other stuff for the Writers Guild in my past. And I noticed that up there, people stay locked in their boxes. They don't communicate. They don't have like a healthy emotional life. Whereas out here, we almost have too much. We're talking constantly. We're sharing. That's where the creative ferment comes from. You've got a whole bunch of people, sometimes screaming, sometimes yelling at each other, a lot of times having a good time. And out of it comes something interesting, comes like new ideas, like the kind of random drunkard's walk of creativity, which is what we do. LA is a random drunkard's walk. And thank God for Uber, because otherwise it would be a random drunkard's drive. So, we should have been teaching them that. And I was like, oh man, it's enough to complain about Silicon Valley, but at the end of the day, you do look inward and you go, man, why are they building a robot god? Like who cares about Peter Thiel's thoughts on the Antichrist? Why? Why have we let it get to this point?
That's a good point. And I want to get back to your article here for a second, though, John.
Sure.
When I was reading it, you've got like such a really great, like a sharp, kind of almost cinematic writing style, which isn't a big surprise, as you write for TV and films. I mean, what the piece was really like part essay, part cultural takedown. So it begs the question to me, like, were you always drawn to this type of commentary, or did this one just come out of the frustration from that conversation that you and your friend had, and you were like, I need to tell everybody that Hollywood and Silicon Valley has officially lost their way?
Yeah, listen, I mean, one of the things I learned as a writer, and I hope young people learn, and not, relying on ChatGPT to write essays, is that at the end of the day, the best writing comes when you have a point, when you feel something passionately, and when you have a voice that you can express it with. So I've written a bunch of other things. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. But I've always found the things that resonate with people are the things where I look at the real world and I look at the world around me and I'm like, God, isn't this the way it is? Doesn't anyone else feel this way?
Yeah.
Do you feel this way? What do you think? And that makes the writing easier. So I try to do that in my film writing. I try to do that in my screenplay writing and my TV writing. And, when you're telling a story, you just want to like mix it in with real world stuff, but it helps to have a point. And I think that's the biggest thing with AI. All this generated slop is like, it very rarely, almost never, I have yet to see it have any type of point other than kind of like this random schizoid stuff. And listen, I'm sure somewhere down the line, it'll be its own new genre. It'll be its own new thing. It'll be like 15 seconds of whatever. But if you want to tell a story, if you want to like engage people, if you want people to sit at like a giant screen and not feel their knees for 2 hours because they're so enraptured, it really helps to ground it in something true and something honest. So in this case, I didn't know I was saying something true and honest until I complained to an editor, and he laughed and he's like, dude, just write that down. We'll run it tomorrow. And that's what happened.
Nice. Yeah, no, it reminds me of a point in, I think it was the movie Almost Famous, where if you remember that movie at all, that was a really great
Of course. Fantastic movie.
He was talking about like, to write a song, to write a great love song, do you have to be in love? To write a great breakup song, do you have to be in despair? And this, AI slop we're seeing really does, and you can feel it lack the soul of humanity that really makes great works of art, which seem to have partly been the impetus for you writing this really great piece. So yeah, it's really wild times here. And going back to your story here, John, you open the piece with, "We in Hollywood owe the world an apology." Do you actually believe Hollywood failed the world, or is that more of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying art stopped challenging power?
It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but also, I mean, like anything, any point, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's a little true. I mean, yeah, I think Hollywood got scared. I think what happened is when I first came out here, it was the very end of kind of like the glory days of the 70s, 80s, 90s. It got a little bit more corporate. It got a little more regularized. So it's not entirely Silicon Valley's fault. We were already doing it to ourselves. But for a while, I worked for this old-timey producer who had done like Apocalypse Now. He'd worked with Francis Ford Coppola. He worked with David Lynch. And like the way he described Hollywood to me before in the 70s and 80s, he's like, man, we would go to Cannes with a suitcase of cocaine and cash and come out of it with something crazy. And everyone would be talking about it 6 months later. And I'm like, that is definitely not the Hollywood. And listen, I'm not, encouraging drug use or encouraging anyone to get like massively addicted. There's real damage that happens there. But at least have a sense of fun and adventure and do something interesting and challenge people and like have a point. There's this weird culture of conformity that has overtaken everything. And I think that's the biggest thing to me is that's when you start getting scary stuff. There's this great film. Speaking of Apocalypse Now, the cinematographer of Apocalypse Now, Vittorio Storaro, made an incredible film in Italy, which is why Francis Ford Coppola wanted him to make Apocalypse Now, which is why Apocalypse Now looks amazing, called The Conformist.
Yeah. And
it was about how in the run up to World War II, in the rise of fascism, everyone started kind of doing the same thing and not thinking, not expressing, and not challenging. And weirdly, that feels like what we've been living in for the past 15 years. And I think we need to shake out of it. So yeah, obviously, man, we're powerless. We don't have money. We don't have guns. We, buy the drugs. But we have a voice and we have an authenticity, and like messages and ideas have power. So I think we dropped the ball a little bit. I really think that there was this weird, like, they're playing with computers. We don't need to worry about it. We'll let the studios get the money from them. No one really did it. No one engaged them. Like, why is Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist? Why doesn't he finance a film about the Antichrist? He could get it out of his system without necessarily trying to build something that, for all intents and purposes, is either a massive bubble that's going to wipe out a whole bunch of value, B, ruin the environment, and C, just end up being a really advanced version of personalized porn, which we kind of already had.
Yeah.
It was called Pornhub, So I mean, Sam Altman, think about this. Sam Altman is running one of the most valuable private companies in the world, and he's talking about like outputting videos of smut. That's Hollywood's job. I'm sorry. Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Well, for Peter Thiel, he might be talking about the Antichrist because I think was that line, the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing you he didn't exist. And some people might actually say that Peter Thiel is, in fact, the Antichrist. So who knows?
He's definitely getting redder every day. I saw that on TikTok.
Yeah. He's kind of showing up like him a little bit more. But to your point about, traveling with the bags of cocaine and like making this art, I think art has kind of gotten lost a little bit in the search of optimization. And that's like a big thing in tech, right? Everyone's trying to optimize things to do them faster and harder. But a lot of great art and great stories come from those detours in life that you didn't expect. You don't get lost anymore because we all have a cell phone. And I remember before phones getting lost for like half a day, but that was a story unto itself. And you don't get those the same way you used to because everything is at our fingertips, and it's everything's become kind of streamlined, which can be good, but for artistic sake, it doesn't feel that way, right?
Here, one of the things I learned from that producer and a bunch of other filmmakers that I've kind of like met and worked worked with and talked to is that like people think that like a movie is completely controlled. Actually, here, Robert Altman said this, and he's Paul Thomas Anderson's mentor. It's like a movie is like about the chaos. It's about the disintegration. And when you're filming something, you can have a script, you can have a plan, but then there's that moment, there's that shot, there's that incredible sunset that if you just turn the camera to the right a little bit, holy shit, it goes from being like, oh, that's a good shot to this is epic. This is something you're going to remember forever. And that is kind of the secret to make great filmmaking. That's always the tension between a studio, which wants a schedule and wants things regularized because they want, they got to pull a profit, and I get it. And the crazy artist who's always pushing to be like, hey, turn the camera that way. I remember I was shooting this one movie out in Greece with a great director, Hossein Amini, and I guess I can tell this now because the movie's 10 years old, but we had our schedule, and we're pulling up, we're setting up, and the DP, the director of photography, this great guy, Marcel Ziskind, is looking out as the sun comes up over the clouds over like this Greek island. And he's like, you're not going to get a shot. Like you couldn't digitally create that shot. And he says, I'm going to go get it. And the producer was like, well, it's 5 minutes till call. We're not supposed to be doing this. No one's supposed to be doing it. And the DP's like, all right, give me a belt. He belted himself to the back of a truck. And they did this incredible driving shot of like a bus going against the sunlight. And it's in the movie. You can't plan for this stuff, and you need that adventure, and that's how discoveries happen. That's how we move forward artistically, progressively. And I feel like we're rehashing a lot of the stuff. I feel like the drive for optimization, as you said, is counterproductive. It's becoming this weird form of inbred mental creativity where everything just keeps feeding on itself. And at a certain point that collapses, I think, or I kind of hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I've done it in my own filmmaking before. Like, there's that impromptu element where you just do this one shot or you don't think this is going to look good, and then you get it in post, you're like, holy shit, that was like the best thing I shot that whole day. And that just came from something that was the spur of the moment, not something that was already preordained by the algorithm saying this is what you need to do to make a movie, right? And it's a wholly different thing. And it's definitely helping, or not helping, I'd say, it's definitely hurting some of that Hollywood magic that we've been seeing. And you write about that in your piece, saying that Hollywood's mistake was letting Silicon Valley take its magic and make it mundane. So my question for you, John, was there like a specific moment when you realized that had happened in Hollywood, when tech officially replaced imagination with optimization?
Oh God. I mean, it's a slippery slope, but I think that's how you wake up and you find yourself here. For me, it might have just been like being on the couch and looking at the Netflix queue or looking at the Amazon queue and then being like, I don't remember what I last watched. Or scrolling for 15 minutes and kind of feeling indifferent and like wanting that, piece of joy and wonder. And by the way, one battle after another, everyone's saying it's losing money, but at the same time, like I went in there and I was like, that was impressive. He did some impressive stuff. He shot on VistaVision. It looks beautiful. And there are moments in it that are like, oh my God, terrifying. Like whether or not you like the movie, whether or not it's like a hugely commercial success, it takes some swings. It actually made more money than people realize. But it's like, that's kind of the cost of doing business is you fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. And at least you get some interesting stuff out of it. So I think it's more like I look at, oh, here's another moment. Actually, this happened. Actually, this might've been the moment. I was going through my Netflix queue and I looked at the top 10 movies and like half of them were made before 2018. And I'm like, wait a second, this is the algorithm telling you something's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like,
right.
It's a very simple thing, which is it's a financial thing. Like we don't have that next source of funding. We don't have that giant pile of cash. They are taking the money that they got out of the ad business, out of destroying cable and turning it into streaming. And rather than reinvesting it in movies, they're putting it in these GPU bundles. And I'm like, once you starve like a system of cash, then it just can't do the same number of things. And there was some piece someone was talking about how is 2007 the last great year of movies, 2008, 2009? Why is that? Why did movies get more humble after that? And I will tell you a huge reason: the financial crisis, the funding, the spigot. Everyone got poor. And suddenly there was not enough money to like finance, boat battles in the Galapagos. So, maybe instead of burning all that money building GPUs that it does not seem a lot of people want or even use that much, burn it here. We set money on fire all the time. It's what we're best at.
Yeah, look at our government. Come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think, and they're not willing to take the creative risks for like the big productions, but they're seemingly willing to do it for certain actors. Like, I don't need another The Rock and Kevin Hart movie. I don't care what anyone else says. Stop giving them their money, because like I want those big budget productions. I want, even though Waterworld was a disaster at the box office, pretty freaking cool. The Titanics of the world. Like, we need those big swings, but we're just not seeing them because everybody thinks there's this formula, but the formula ain't working.
No, the formula is definitely not working. Listen, for every Titanic, there is a Waterworld. And there's something kind of cool and crazy about Waterworld. Even if it's a bad movie, it is. Cool. It's Kevin Costner being as ambitious as he possibly could be. Hold on one second. We got a cat running across, the screen.
Oh, is that Russian Blue?
Yeah, Russian Blue. She's amazing. She's wonderful.
I got one too.
Oh, they're great cats. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, it's like that's the cost of doing business, is you pay for this. And you get Titanic, you get Waterworld, but at least it's something different and weird and crazy. And I don't know how we let that Silicon Valley mentality colonize us so extensively. And I do see a light at the end of the tunnel. I will say, because a lot of the hype, and if you want to get quick money, a lot of those people have kind of gone to up north to Silicon Valley these days. The people who are still here, they got crazy scripts. They want to make crazy movies. I have a crazy script. Math nerds, if you like Kurt Gödel, if you like the incompleteness theorem, throw me a few million, you'll get a crazy ass movie. It's like, we're here, we're waiting. We've got scripts, we'll travel. We just need you to stop buying godless amounts of GPUs, which I like. This has got to be I don't know. This has got to be the greatest destruction of excess capital ever, because how in God's name do you need that many pieces of baked sand? I do not think that you actually need it. I think that was a story Silicon Valley told itself, and it's kind of waking up.
Yeah, I think we put a lot into Silicon Valley being right, because it's backed like often behind data, and data is everything now, right? Do you have data that supports it? You do or you don't. So I think we take that, but the fact is, like, that doesn't necessarily apply to great art. We're trying to mesh two things that are inherently just very different. Art doesn't always make sense.
Oh, by the way, it's not just data, it's that it's old data. Like, how do you want to make new data? We make data. Data is us. Data comes from lived experience, comes from being crazy, comes from having a cat walk across your screen. You learn something. But if you're just constantly analyzing old data and optimizing towards that old data, you don't get that new stuff. You don't get that kind of randomness and chaos and entropy that exists in life, and you as a human being can turn into something great. So I think that we maybe discount our own ability and our own intelligence when it comes to being able to take the random shit that we live with and turn it into something cool. It's like this is a quote from The Departed. That's a quote from John Lennon. I'm an artist. Give me a tuba. I'll give you something. That's what we do. Yeah. That's how we make the new data. And if you're just living off of old data, okay. Actually, here's an anecdote. I used to tell this during the strike, because I've obviously done a lot of work with AI. And, when we were striking, a lot of writers it was somewhat new to them. The sci-fi writers knew all about it, but the teen YA drama writers didn't. And I'd explain it to them, and I'd tell them this test I did with GPT-4. I was like, I want to see, is this really an oracle? Can this predict the future? And I fed it all this box office data, and I did it when they had just done the cutoff. So I knew its training data didn't have the old box office data. And it basically predicted what the tracking predicted for movies, which is just, human opinion. And it missed the actual box office. So for the Super Mario Brothers movie, I fed it the tracking numbers, and it said, yes, Super Mario Brothers is going to make $55 million its opening weekend. Super Mario Brothers made $120 million its opening weekend. GPT-4 didn't predict that. It's because it's going off of the old data. Anyway.
Right. And, and I got a feeling if we saw some of the new data too, also in part, very much in part, thanks social media and Silicon Valley, like the way we consume, art and stuff is so different now. And like, I'm a big fan of the older movies with the long, like a rope, the long, slow build, 10-minute take. And you just can't do that anymore, because everybody's used to 3 seconds or I'm moving on to the next thing. And it's irreparably damaged, I think, people's ability to create art, because if what you're building doesn't optimize for eyeballs in the first 3 seconds, then people just move on. Like, how do we get past that? Like with this new generation, right?
I know. That's what makes me feel old. I remember when YouTube was like a new thing, and I'm like, oh wow, 3 minutes is the max on a YouTube video that you can really engage in. And I was like, what? And now it's 3 seconds. And then I have a kid, and her mom came to me the other day and was like, hey, have you seen this data on kids watching YouTube? Like they get reduced blood flow and oxygen circulation in the brain after 90 minutes. And I'm like, well, I guess that would explain the short attention spans. But by the way, I don't want to be an old fogey yelling at clouds. Like I actually am pretty proud. Like I look at my daughter and I look at her friends. Like when they go to movies, they love them. Like they get engaged with them. And I feel like there's an incipient desire to put down the phone just a little bit. Like K-pop Demon Hunters, right? The biggest thing on streaming. Everyone wants to watch it. The most watched movie in the history of Netflix. She's seen it like 3 times because, of course, she's a kid. And then they do the sing-along. And she's like, I gotta go. I'm like, you've seen this movie 4 times. Okay, I guess I'm taking you. I haven't been to an experience like that in 10 years. Like a freaking rock concert of 5 to 15-year-old girls screaming, singing, like waving lights in the theater. And like they come out of it like it was some kind of transcendental experience. And I was like, there is hope. Like if Hollywood puts the stuff in theaters, makes it an event, makes it special, makes it big, the new generation will rediscover like, oh, this is why people have loved movies for 100 years. Because you can't do it from your couch. You just cannot get that same feeling.
Yeah.
So I am hopeful if Hollywood and maybe Silicon Valley throws us some money, like starts putting some crazy wild stuff back in theaters, and those kids get back in that habit that they lost from the pandemic when they were shut inside, I am hopeful that we might be able to turn around and maybe get a little more emotionally healthy as a society, because we definitely need a mental timeout.
Yeah, and you make a good point about as an event. I don't feel like movie premieres. That used to be a big deal. It'd be the red carpet. Everybody's coming out in movies. Back in the day, I remember sometimes people would be on set for 6 months, maybe a year for a real epic type movie.
Yeah.
But now it feels like you can churn out a movie in like 40 days. And part of me wonders, does that kind of subtract from the grandeur,
absolutely.
from the magic of all of it? Because it was like a year of my life is in this movie, but now it's like The Rock just pumped out like 6 last year. So it kind of waters down everything as a result of that, right?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, that is a direct result of not having enough money, because the simplest way to make a movie cheaper is to cut the shooting time. So a 50-day shoot costs way less than a 100-day shoot. A 30-day shoot costs geometrically less. So what happened is the studio started shrinking the amount of time you spend shooting a film down to 21 days in some cases, the kind of Jason Blum effect. And at that point, it limits your ability to be creative. At that point, you start looking like any random TV show. So once you kind of lose that ability to pull off like Lawrence of Arabia style feats, you're just not creating something as epic. Like, why are Christopher Nolan movies so amazing? I mean, obviously he's very talented, a great writer, great director, but he also has the sway to get the $100 million budget, to have the 200-day shoot, to get Matt Damon saying, hey, we're going to freaking the Mediterranean for 3 months, and we don't know what we're going to get, but it's going to be amazing. Like, he gets to do that. Paul Thomas Anderson got to do that on One Battle After Another, but no one else does. And it's kind of like, you need to, water the young crops. You need to give the new filmmakers chances. You need to give them a little bit more money. And it's just because Hollywood doesn't have the money. Look, Warner Brothers is up for sale. David Ellison is going to buy it. Like, that's one less studio. The less studios you have, the more similar the content, the films, the movies, the TV shows get. Yeah. And I think it's an opportunity. I do have a couple of friends up in Silicon Valley who are making billions off of AI, and I keep asking them, please buy a studio. Just like throw some of that money, buy a studio. Like, you will become so much more relevant. You will discover so many more things. You will learn so many things. Like, people don't appreciate how much R&D came out of the entertainment industry in the 20th century. Like, half of robotics comes from Disney because they built, the fabulous Mr. Lincoln or whatever it is in Disneyland. Like, throw some of that money our way so that we can do crazy, stupid things as opposed to, more GPUs.
Yeah. I wonder, though, if a big tech company did buy a Warner Brothers, for instance, do you think that they would really be capable of making, like, quote unquote real art? Or would they still be too obsessed with the metrics that, kind of got them to where they were in their Silicon Valley space to really and fully embrace and take those creative risks that are necessary to make great revolutionary type of art.
That is definitely where it seems like it would go. I am an innate optimist, as cranky as I can sound. And I look at Apple and like everyone in Hollywood like goes, why is Apple here? Like they make tons of money on phones. Like are they kind of losing money? Probably, I don't know. But at least they're taking some risks. So some of the stuff coming out of them is a little more interesting on the streaming end. The studio, very funny, obviously self-referential. Hollywood loves to laugh at itself. But they're trying. They took Foundation, and I don't, whether or not you liked or didn't like it, it's kind of crazy and weird. Murderbot, like all these kind of things. They're trying a little bit. I think they have a lot of room for improvement, and they could absolutely grow, and they could like do that. So if Apple can do it, and Apple clearly has the best relationship with the creative community, other places can do it. But by that same token, I do think it's on us to kind of like go up to Silicon Valley and shake them out of their like rigid lifestyle and teach them how to have a little bit of fun time. Take them to set. I mean, good God, people love set visits. When you're working on set, it's a little boring, but people love to visit set because you see the crazy stuff we do. You watch the actors rehearsing. You see all this stuff. Like, enchant them. Make it big. Make it feel special. And I think that's something that, for whatever reason, we didn't quite do, and we need to do better and be ambassadors and be up there. They send all these AI tech bros down to tell us how AI is going to make everything better. And so far, we are very unimpressed. We should be doing the same. We should be sending people up to Silicon Valley and being like, hey, this is what making a movie is. This is what making art is. It's crazy, but kind of cool.
Yeah, I wonder how you would even go about like convincing. Like, do they have to be so wealthy that you can be like, listen, you have to have a completely different mindset when you're doing this? Like, how do you convince somebody that's gotten so successful that where they at the point where they can buy a studio that maybe the line of thinking that got them to where they are currently won't exist in this realm? Because I look right now, the really studios that I'm seeing put out what I think are interesting stuff, like A24 is really the one right now that I'm seeing continuously put out very interesting films. And then you have to kind of have such a proof of work to get an opportunity to do that. Like one of my favorite comedians and writers out there is Nathan Fielder. I don't know if you saw the second season of The Rehearsal on HBO, where they basically wrote him a blank check.
Yeah.
Oh, it is two of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it's incredible. And he's insane. And if you ever saw like Nathan For You, he takes these crazy risks, but it took him almost a decade of proving that he is capable of doing this for them to finally write him that check. So he's kind of in his own like Christopher Nolan era right now, where he can do whatever he wants because he keeps hitting. But there are so few people like that. They're there. We're not going to be seeing that stuff.
They're there. You just like Nathan Fielder was that way 10 or 15 years ago, but no one knew or no one cared. You always need that first hit of success. You always need that first thing that pops and breaks. And it is very random. It's a casino. I think you go out and find the next generation of talent. You find the weird things. You don't go through the established channels and systems. But B, I'm a writer, so I don't know how to con people out of money. That's like a producer's job, really. But they're really good at it. They're really good. I mean, people constantly ask what producers do in Hollywood, and they just make stuff happen. They know how to like go on someone's super yacht and be like, hey, I know you're going to like build a data center in Arizona that's going to raise the temperature 0.5 degrees centigrade. But what if, hear me out, we did Cleopatra again, for real, with Sydney Sweeney's Cleopatra or someone else probably, because Cleopatra was from the Middle East. But you know what I mean? Like someone like that is an ability that Hollywood used to have, and I think we still have it in there and in us. We just need to answer that call.
Yeah, and also too, there's no the star system is not what it used to be. Like the only real movie star I feel like there is right now, it's like Tom Cruise and I guess maybe DiCaprio and maybe like one or two.
Maybe
others,
Glenn Powell, is
like,
he kind of does he almost break that
I don't
level?
give him that much credit. I don't know. I've seen his most recent stuff. I thought it was pretty good. Hitman.
I guess Chalamet. I had a buddy who told me a story of running into Chalamet in New York, and he said he still gets like crap, people running after him, and he has to go hide in the club and do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the whole system hasn't been set up. I mean, that was kind of a byproduct of our obsession with IP and comic book movies, is that because the IP became the star, it didn't launch as many careers or it didn't elevate people to that same star status. again, I think they're there. I think if you want to get the next Paul Newman or the next Robert Redford, you got to put them in something risky. It can't just be
Right.
the fourth version of Thor or a random heist movie, though, maybe there are good heist movies out there. Are definitely good heist movies out there. You have to like
Yeah.
give them that kind of like incredible character. You have to take risks on these stories that are not branded but are kind of iconic. Like look at like There Will Be Blood. Totally crazy movie, right? And Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously he's a
Yeah.
great actor, but like I feel like that elevated his profile in a way that the younger generation was about to forget who he was or why he was so good. And then he
Right.
does this role and everyone's like, "Oh, right, that guy's great." Daniel
Yeah.
Day-Lewis is going to get old. He's going to die, but there is another Daniel Day-Lewis out there. There is the next version. There is not
Mhm.
even version, the next person who is their own person. You just got to give them the material to
Yeah.
shine in. And if we're not making that material, if we're not financing that material, if we're not taking those big risks and creative swings, then the stars themselves get smaller because they have a harder time breaking through and making an impression on you. Social media be damned. Like what is that moment? What is that character? What is that crazy story that sticks in your brain after you've turned off the Netflix queue? And we need to be making those movies.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely not enough of those right now. But also, too, it's like TV has gotten so good. And it used to be like there was TV
Yeah.
actors and there's movie actors. And now it's just everybody's trying to get whatever work they can. And I think
Yeah.
that because TV has really upped the ante, I can get so engrossed in characters I'm really interested in for seasons at a time that just ultimately, especially with binge watching, right? I can watch Ozark and it's like a 5-season movie and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. By the
that
way,
has
there's nothing
certainly,
wrong with that.
changed it.
That that's
No,
that's
no.
great. Yeah, I definitely think in terms of collapsing the difference between movies and TV into one thing, that is something that's kind of part of the evolution of entertainment. But by that same token, I worry. I look at what's coming on television right now, and I feel that same homogenization starting to sink in. I think we're a little bit over the hump of like those glory days of Ozark, of The Sopranos, of Breaking Bad. And I think
Yeah,
it's that
Mad
same
Men.
kind of optimization mentality that is and this is from personal experience. Like I said, I used to work for an indie film producer, and like again, his life, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s was suitcases of cocaine and cash making weird, crazy art films. And he had to hustle to get money, and he kind of developed this method for getting a movie made. And as that studio system changed, it became simpler. It was like, get this movie star, get this IP. And now you see that happening in TV. It used to be in television, you could go into a pitch meeting and like have a random conversation and sell a TV show and a series. That's how we
Right.
got Seinfeld. Larry David and
Yeah,
Jerry
there
Seinfeld
you
went
go.
in there and just shot the shit and they came out with a sitcom. Now you have to have a book and an IP and a character and it has to be cross-platformed. It has to be this, this, and this. And it's kind of like you're taking the risk out of television, which was taking risks. So I
Right.
fear that if we don't get back to that mindset, television might get more forgettable. Again, that drive to optimization, that putting everything into a formula, it's disastrous in the long run.
It is, yeah. No, I agree, John. And I know our time is running short here, but I have one more question I needed to ask you before we let you go today.
Sure.
Going back to your piece, one of your harshest and maybe funniest lines says that tech leaders are children afraid of living emotionally healthy lives and facing inevitable death. Do you think that fear of mortality is what's really driving this whole AI obsession right now? Because everybody wants to live forever?
Yes, they say it. I mean,
Yeah.
I have talked to AI people. They believe it. They want to like conquer the light cone of the universe, and that's delusional. That's because you're not accepting that you're going to
Yeah.
die, that you only have a little slice of time on this planet, and you should do something cool and amazing and fun and helpful to other people with that moment in time. And instead, they're thinking about scales of time that are so far beyond what matters to any one person. Like the whole story, and this is like a well-known tale that was told in Silicon Valley of like Elon Musk and Larry Page's falling out because like Larry Page is like, I don't know, let's let that next species take over and expand beyond the light cone of the universe. That's insane shit. Put that in a script. We'll make a movie about it. You
Yeah.
don't actually need to make it
Yeah.
happen. It's more fun to make a
I'd be
movie
curious,
about
though.
it, frankly.
I wish we had more time because I'd love to get your thoughts on that movie Mountainhead. Did you see that Netflix one that's about
Yes.
the billionaires?
Yeah.
And like that I thought was interesting. It was okay. I thought the execution
It was
was a little lacking, but
he's a
an
great
interesting
writer.
idea.
I don't know that he totally gets the psychology of the Silicon Valley the people I've talked to, at least in the AI field. But I think it points to this larger thing, which is this kind of like isolation. Like that, I think the truth that movie hinted at and did well was that people lock themselves in a bunker. These guys lock themselves on a mountain away from all human experience, and they're totally alienated from themselves. And then they've got this great anxiety because when you do that, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna suffer. We're all gonna have amazing things happen. The only way to cope with it is to talk to other people and to engage in a group project and to be part of a team. And that's what filmmaking is. Like when you get on set and when you make a movie, you are part of this crazy, insane endeavor, and you just hope it turns out well. But it's fun, and people keep doing it over and over and over again. And unfortunately, AI, it's one person in a box, pressing a button and trying to get something out of the slot machine. And I really think you lose a lot of opportunity for creativity and risk by limiting it to just yourself.
Yeah, and when you're trying to make us all live forever, like it kind of takes away the beauty of that comes with impermanence, right? Every fleeting moment, it could be our last, and that's part of what makes it beautiful. But the robots don't understand that yet, I guess. Well, John, we got to let you go today, but it was so freaking fun to have you on the show. I could have talked to you all day. Before we let you go, though, I know you got a Twitter account and you've got a show coming up really quick. Tell us where our audience can find both of those things.
Yes, I'm on Twitter or X at J. Edgar Lopez. I just do a lot of reposting. I put my columns there. I just got off season 2 of Ballard. Season 1 is now streaming on Amazon Prime. Good old-fashioned cop show. A lot of fun. Maggie Q is amazing. And season 2, we just got the green light. So hopefully that'll be coming in a year or so. And yeah, if you're a billionaire and want to make a movie about Kurt Gödel and the incompleteness theorem, hit me up. I would love to do that. I have the script. It'll be crazy. I guarantee you it's batshit insane, as it should be.
Love it. And we'll be looking out for that one and the next season of Ballard. So thank you so much for your time today, John. It was an absolute pleasure getting your insights and expertise. And thanks for fighting the good fight out there. We certainly appreciate you and your work.
All right. Thank you, man. Thanks for talking to me. John. It was fun. Bye.
Thank you. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we're going to be joined by our resident chart shark, Luca Pagano, to make sense of what's going on to the markets as we head into the weekend. So stay tuned. Blockchain Report will be right back after this very quick message.
It runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at Roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Oh, it's beautiful, Hank. This is not financial advice.
All right, welcome back. It's time to talk with the man who can read the tea leaves like no one else. I got Luca Pagano, our resident chart shark, on the line with us. Luca, happy Friday. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Hank, how's it going? It's a pleasure to be here. It's a rainy Friday, but excited for the show, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, and I can't think of a better way to start wrapping up this week than getting a better idea of what you are seeing in the market right now. Bitcoin's currently around that 110 level. As we talked about during our Bitcoin Alpha portion earlier, it looks like we're really trying to get above that 114K level. That might signal the next move up, but what are you seeing in the numbers right now? What should we be looking for as we head into the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. When I look at the charts here, Hank, what I'm seeing is we gotta take this, level to level, because we're at a quite important area, right? So we don't want to, jump ourselves into conclusions. And as you know, like, this is never financial advice, but I just love sharing charts with you and with the audience that supports us. So let's get into that. I honestly see, like, if we sort of clean this out 1 second, I honestly see two big ranges. So let's basically chart this together. We have the big range, which is like the from $100,000 to 111 to 12, which is what I think we're battling right now. actually here, Hank, basically, last week I was picturing this kind of pullback into this $112,000 sort of, and then we could bleed a little bit down and see what happens. So for me, putting it simple, I hope so at least. For me, this is basically this range here that we have here. This for me is like kind of the indecision range right now, because you have like if you go higher, let's say we could reclaim $113,000. For me, you enter into the more, let's say, more attractive range, the one we'd like to see heading to new all-time highs, where you got from $112,000 to $124,000 basically, right? And if you if you come lower, right? If you lose $110,000, for me, we're heading to probably $98,000 to $100,000. Like, I hope I'm being quite clear. I think these two paths are very possible both, and I think in the middle, it's what I like to call like where impatient traders try to make calls that they try to anticipate the movements. I mean, it could get it could be good, but I won't risk it in that sense. If we want to lower 1 sec the time frame, also for you to see this, Hank, like I think we're having a clear like confluence here, where if we definitely come above these lower highs we're making, if we make a higher high here, it would be amazing for us to keep momentum,
Yeah. Now let's pretend for a second that I'm a patient trader, okay, Luca? And right now I'm seeing Bitcoin around the 110 thing. I believe that Bitcoin still has legs to run as we enter the end of the year. What levels are you looking at for a bullish confirmation that might be a time where, if I'm somebody who's looking to get in, might feel comfortable making a little dip into the Bitcoin pool? Again, not financial advice. I'm just wondering what levels you're looking at to see that, in fact, you think we will be back on the ups again, rather than kind of this coiling we've been doing in the last 2 weeks since that flash crash 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the important question for us who look for more of a positioning, I think that if we see it on the weekly here, Hank, I think it's even clearer, honestly, because you have this, this continuation to the downside, which couldn't fall below $100,000, which that is $110,000, which that is amazing, for us to be comfy, I think on the upside, I mean, I would love to enter this like basically $112,000 to $113,000, because that would basically cover up last week's downward price, right? So for me, that makes sense, in terms of more of a sideways kind of action, and then getting over it, because if we close below $110,000, for me this is still continuation of losing momentum and probably getting to $98,000 to $100,000. That's why I like. I hate to be patient in terms of the market, but I honestly think it's one of those times, where if you try to hurry it, you'll probably get stuck in a position that maybe you don't want to,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Patience is a virtue after all. And, if you get a little too angsty out there, that's where you make some bad trades. And something we've talked about on the show quite a bit, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is Bitcoin's dominance in relation to the overall market. Because right now we've seen Bitcoin is back at 110, but I haven't seen, for instance, like Ethereum or XRP kind of catch up to similar levels when we saw Bitcoin back at 110 just a few weeks ago. Right now, Ethereum is still lagging beneath $4,000 a pop. So what do you see? What's going on there? Are people circulating out of ETH right now and back into Bitcoin? Or what's your take on the situation based on what you're seeing on the charts right now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Hank, if we see this together, I'm loving the BTC dominance chart, because it has treated us very well since we started analyzing it here together. Remember we had this deviation that we marked, then we had definitely the low, which why did we mark this line? Well, because it was the big support back in 2020, and it was also a big pullback support back in 2019. So basically, this has also been respected now, which is amazing. And we went right at the resistance on the big Friday crash. Remember we had last week? The week before that. So where we're at right now, I mean, I think for altcoins, we can get a breathing here, yeah. But I would love to see more altcoins like closer if we get to the 60% Bitcoin dominance. I think we have a little bit more time to go on BTC, either for a quick recovery on that side or more like sideways where alts bleed a little bit, and we keep on going, but yeah, I mean, not every week is an easy week on the markets, Hank, so this is one of those weeks where I'm erring on the side of cautiousness more than anything, looking for confirmations also, and always looking to beat the BTC. What can I tell you? That's at least generally the plan on a bull market.
Yeah, plan the trade, don't trade the plan, as they say. All right,
Exactly.
So one more question before we let you go here, Luca. As you and I are both aware, it is quote-unquote Uptober right now, but this month has been anything but since that flash crash we saw 2 weeks ago. But there is a week left. So what are you looking for as we exit the month of October? Are there any certain benchmark numbers in mind for Bitcoin that'll confirm to you that we're back on the right track as we enter what is usually a very bountiful Q4?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the key point here, I mean, I think Q4 is still heading up nicely, to be honest. We had, of course, big turbulence in the beginning, which I think it's probably normal, in these instances, because when we started Q4, Hank, the obvious opinion, 90% of the market was saying that we will be crashing all-time highs in 1 second. I mean, I'm bullish Q4. Honestly, I have been bullish Q4. I'm still bullish Q4, but it makes sense for us to liquidate a lot of stuff before that, right? So for me, heading into November, I really expect for us to maintain prices, which doesn't mean what we were saying earlier. It doesn't mean that we couldn't take this low, for example, on $97,000, $98,000, and then just keep on going. That's why I say we should be cautious. But in terms of the quarter, I think we got some cut rates that we already had, probably another cut rate coming in. A lot of liquidity in the money market, so I don't see why we should have a bear market in terms of finishing the year lower than we're at right now. But I do expect not to be an easy money to make it. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting for us to follow it here together, Hank, every week as we do.
Yeah, no, we certainly appreciate your insights and expertise in this arena. So it's looking like right now we still might see some short-term hiccups, but things are still looking in place for another up and to the right Q4. At least that's how things stand right now. So Luca, as always, we certainly appreciate you and your time. You always got the best takes. And for those in our audience that haven't gotten enough yet, what's the best place I can send them to get more of your chart analysis when you're not on the show? Where can they go?
Yeah, I mean, I will wait. I will be waiting for you guys at look at Roxom, analyzing some charts and trading some Bitcoin together.
Rock and roll, buddy. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Luca. It's always a pleasure, and you have a great weekend, my friend. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye, Hank. Same to you, man. See you soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we're taking a break here at the Blockchain Report, but when we're back, we're going to wrap up this week with a little bullish, bearish, or BS and see how the market is looking and how Bitcoin is looking as we enter the final week of October. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Thatch right after this. Hey, you. Yeah, you. You wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, I do too. But hey, That's why Ledden exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Over $9 billion worth issued since 2018 with a perfect record protecting client assets. Now, what makes a Ledden loan different, you ask? Well, with custody loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks. It funds in under 6 hours. No monthly payments. You repay anytime with 0 penalties. And for transparency, grown-ups actually want proof of reserves reports every 6 months verified by a top accounting firm. Bottom line is Ledden lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling it. Check it out over at ledden.io/RoxomTV. That's LEDN.io/RoxomTV. All right, it's time to wrap up the week with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. This is where we recap today's top stories and see what they mean for Bitcoin going forward. Let's do it. First up, Steve Bannon claims that Trump will have a third term, calling him an instrument of divine will, while Trump himself teased running through 2032 or even forever. Oh. Constitutional scholars even said it's technically possible if he isn't elected again. My verdict on this, I'm calling BS, all right? Because apparently divine will now includes campaign merch, felony indictments, and a membership to Truth Social Premium. This is political performance art. It spooks normies, it excites fanatics, and moves exactly 0 Bitcoin. The only thing this story inflates is engagement on X, not market caps. This is just political theater with no price impact, so I'm calling BS. Next up, we have Bitcoin, or a trader who made a $200 million trade shorting Bitcoin last month has now opened another $226 million leverage short with a liquidation price of around $123. He's also transferred over $500 million in Bitcoin to exchanges, suggesting he's gearing up for more action. Oof, calling bearish on this one. Big players betting against Bitcoin creates real-time, short-term pressure, especially when retail sees the same whale who nailed the last crash doubling down. It could trigger another round of panic selling before the market shakes it off, but if he's wrong, the rebound will be violent. My short take on this, I mean, short-term fears incoming, but short-term bearish, it comes with it, so don't love it. So I'm bearish. Last but not least, we have newly pardoned Binance founder CZ has accepted Peter Schiff's challenge to a debate over Bitcoin versus gold, a face-off between a crypto billionaire and a man allergic to progress. Schiff's even launching his own tokenized gold coin, which CZ immediately called a Trust Me Bro token. I'm calling bullish on this one, all right? CZ's public redemption arc mixed with a televised smackdown of the biggest gold bug alive. That's free marketing, baby. It reignites the digital gold narrative, draws attention from mainstream investors, and helps remind everyone that Bitcoin already won the hard money argument. CZ's comeback plus gold bug humiliation equals bullish energy, no matter what way you cut it. So today's final scores, 1 bearish, 1 bullish, 1 BS. Overall, I'm calling today's market sentiment a whole bunch of bull. We've got 1 political sideshow, 1 whale with a death wish, and 1 PR battle between gold and digital gold. The net effect here, the noise cancels itself out. The market's holding steady near 110K, and until we see another major macro event or ETF inflow spike, Bitcoin's just catching its breath before the next leg up. Volatility may rise in the short term, but the fundamentals remain rock solid. All right, we're going to give a toss to one of our sponsors here real quick, so run it. Oh, there we go. And we're already on it. It's a live show, guys. So in case you were, are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? Of course you are. I mean, I sure am. And the Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. You can use it like any credit card in your wallet. You can buy lunch, you could buy gas or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of other 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It is the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com to learn more. Whew, well, that was a lot of talky for me this week, guys. But as always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Blockchain Report. We are up at 4 a.m. every freaking day to put this show on for you so you can get the best signal out there and hopefully a couple chuckles along the line as well. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, to the Blockchain Report, and to Hank at RoxomTV on all platforms you choose to do your doom scrolling on. And we will be back next week with more of the same. So as always, thanks for tuning in. And until I see you next week, stay safe, stay informed, and always, please, God, make sure to hodl on. See you next week.